easy go.
Welcome back, Buck Bros. Welcome back to this week's episode. As always, we're here giving you our thoughts on every Bucs game this season. Got a lot to cover this week in this episode. So without further ado, let me introduce you back to our Buck Bros, Zach, John, Bryce. How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Hey, broadcasters, good to be back.
Yeah, doing great, man.
Sure, we're all doing better now after a win this week in Foxborough. So let's just cut to the chase, guys. In our game review this week, week 4, we were all anticipating a big game, and we got one. It was pretty close. Tom Brady sets history, now becomes the league leader in career passing yards. So, guys, let's just jump to the chase and see what you guys think. Zach, I know you were talking about pressure in your game preview last week. 4 sacks this game. Are you happy with it? Do you think we got enough pressure on Mac Jones?
Well, I'll always take more pressure for sure. But yeah, I mean, they harassed him. The interception he threw was a great moment of him getting popped and throwing a pick. He definitely was considering no JPP. I mean, we got a lot of pressure. I was very pleased to see how much pressure we got. And with the secondary in the state it is, we're going to need more of that.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's going down. I know we had injuries to, I think it was Winfield and Carlton Davis this week. So we move along. Bryce, your fantasy player was Tom Brady. Didn't have a great stat sheet, kind of a 50% completion and a few yards, but not a lot of touchdowns. Do you think he did enough, or would you like to have seen more from him?
I mean, I think obviously we would have liked to see more. I think I said he was going to throw for like 3 or 4 touchdowns. I missed that mark, obviously, completely. But he did it, it's hard to say because, he did enough to get the team to win, right? And so, we just weren't executing in the red zone as efficiently, obviously, as we have been accustomed to seeing with Tom Brady. And I think the weather probably played a big part in that. I mean, it was raining all game. There were definitely some drop passes, one to Cameron Brate that would have kept the chains moving on one of those drives. There were a few others. I think Evans had one as well. So that being said, I think Brady probably didn't play anywhere near his own standards and probably not what fantasy owners of Tom Brady expected. Nonetheless, for Bucs fans, anytime you can pull out a victory, especially in a game as emotional as that one was for Tom Brady, that's a victory for us.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely okay with the win, however it happens. We go to John. John, you were looking for more in the running game. Do you think you saw enough? I know we got 1 rushing touchdown. That's the only touchdown we got during the game. Enough for you, or do you want to see more there?
I actually thought we established the run game very well. Leonard Fournette ran hard, ran often, and it was towards the end of the game was really starting to wear them down. I would have liked to seen the team run the ball more, especially in the first half with Tom Brady overthrowing so many receivers. We had so many drives that stalled because of dialed up plays that shouldn't have been there, given the weather and given Brady's performance. I know it was his game to play however he wanted, essentially, given his breaking of the record and being back in Foxborough. But we should have just fed the rock to both running backs all game, less likely to be overthrown, less likely to stall out on 3 and outs. But what I saw, I really liked, and I really want to see more of Leonard Fournette playing that strong.
Yeah, big discrepancy in running yards this game, 119 to -1. Actually, the fun fact, that's the lowest the Patriots franchise have had in a game, was -1 rushing yards. So kudos to the rushing defense and the rushing offense.
And Brady outrushed their team, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he had like 4, something. At least Bryce's fantasy player was on the field. Mine was Gronk. He entered the game with 4 cracked ribs and a punctured lung. So he's got me beat there regardless. And everybody's talking about like the red zone trips. I think not having Gronk is like a direct correlation to our performance in the red zone. We have to score. If we're not going to run the ball like we should more down there, now we have to score from farther out because we don't have Gronk who can just catch it at the 5 and muscle his way in.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think
and
Ryan, you touched on it as well. The injuries are starting to mount up for this team. I believe our top three cornerbacks are now injured, and looks like we'll be without those top three cornerbacks for quite some time. Gronk is out. Hopefully, he can come back within a few weeks. Antoine Winfield is on concussion protocol. Um, you know, if you look back at last year, the team was pretty lucky from a health standpoint. Not a whole lot of starters went down all season, and we're 4 weeks into the season, and we're missing 5, 6 starters already from that starting 22. So obviously, that injuries are a part of the game. We got to come over those and step up as a team. So I know we've got tough opponent coming in for this year or for this week, excuse me. But it's definitely something that we're going to look at going forward is can we overcome some of these injuries, especially in the secondary.
All right, guys, heading into the game preview now, we go into week 5, game 5, this time against the Dolphins, staying in the AFC East. John, I'm going to start with you because in your season preview, this was your first loss of the season. So do you still see it being a loss?
I do see this still being a loss. We're still not doing any of the things right as a team that I expect the defending Super Bowl champs with this level of talent to be doing. For some reason, AB is still the number one target. We're not getting the ball fed out to Godwin, to Evans the way that it needs to be. I don't think the offense is performing, which just exacerbates the problems that we're having on defense. And so, like you guys said, with the missing cornerbacks and with Anton Winfield Jr. going to be out for this game, and Sherman, this will be his first full week of practice. And while he looked okay, he doesn't look like he's going to be, a turnaround player just yet for our defense. Maybe he can develop into one. The Bucs have a history of making backup quarterbacks look like all pros, and I don't expect that to change this week. So unless something drastically changes on offense, where we can turn this into a shootout and really put points on the board, yeah, I do still expect this to be a loss.
All right, so going 3-2 now. What about you, Bryce? Do you agree with John?
That's a big NO there. I do not see it the same way that John said. I now agree that the team obviously is not playing up to a Super Bowl winning caliber, right? As a team, obviously was playing towards the end of last season. That being said, we're still 3-1. We've won the games we probably should have won. And I think I predicted so far that we'd be 3-1. And the Dolphins have their own injuries, specifically at the quarterback position, right? So I just don't see there's any way that Jacoby Brissett is going to outperform Tom Brady. And I think Tom, as we had talked about, Tom Brady is probably a little PO'd that he did not do or not throw for any touchdowns against his former team. I think he comes out and we have some better execution offensively. Now the Dolphins do have a pretty good defense. So I don't believe this will be a high scoring game. That being said, I also see the, our sacks improved from the last game too. We finally got to the quarterback. Joe Tryon had 2 sacks. Vita Vea looked unstoppable at times. So we finally got to the quarterback. I think that continues here. I would say probably looked for 3 or 4 sacks, some turnovers. I think the defense comes out and shows out. So, no, I see this as, I won't say a comfortable win, but I'll say a pretty comfortable win.
Yeah, you got to believe that even though with the win, Tom Brady's not satisfied with that performance that he had, and he'll want to come back and do even better. Zach, what are you thinking as we head into week 5 against the Dolphins?
I mean, probably more leaning with Bryce. A little more bullish on our prospects this week. The Dolphins, they can't run the ball. I know no one really tries to run the ball against us, but they can't run the ball at all. I think they're going to be forced to throw the ball. Jacoby Brissett's a fraud. I'm not super worried about him. It's the defense for me that's on our side that's concerning. Their guys playing in that secondary, I don't even know who they are. I mean, it's a skeleton crew in that secondary. I'm focused on the fact that the Dolphins are not good. they're going to be the second worst team we've played. Only team worse, the Falcons. So I'm confident we can come out with a win. I don't think it's going to look particularly good, but I'm confident we come out with a win. If we can do the things we need to do, run the ball, set up play action, try to develop a vertical passing attack without Gronk, as hard as that is to do, but try to push the ball when we get our looks on defense. Just let that front seven eat. Tryon looked great. He really popped for the first time for me. He really jumped off the screen in that game. One of his sacks was electric. So, I'm bullish, but I don't think it'll be the prettiest game. I mean, maybe more akin to the Cowboys game.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see honestly with you that it's going to be a just a grindy game, if you will. I think we just need to have kind of the same formula as we did with the New England game, which is start forcing some turnovers and forcing the other team into mistakes and don't make too many ourselves. I think we hurt ourselves a little bit with penalties in the New England game. But if we can limit those and then obviously limit the turnovers like we did, we should be set for a win here. And I think we do get it. So I look for us to be 4-1, same as our season predictions. So with that, we're going to head into Buckbro bets now. Real quick, Zach, what do you have? I know we've been doing the overs and they haven't quite been hitting. Are you sticking with it, or do you think you're going to change it up this week?
Well, this is the first week that the over for the game didn't hit. I mean, we've been an overs club. I will admit, I'll put my hand up. I didn't know that it was going to be downpour rain and 60 degrees. So that's on me. I've already looked at the weather for this upcoming week. I won't make the same mistake twice. We're still an overs club, especially every week there's fewer and fewer starters on defense. So, I mean, that's how you become an overs club, is you have a good offense and a bad defense. So I'm sticking with the over again this week, but I will reflect on, we're 2-2 on the main card, and the lock of the week is embarrassingly 0-2. It's turning into the fate of the week if we don't make some changes. So with that said, the main card I look at this week, we're 10.5 point favorites. I think that's wild. I don't know how we got, I know we're at home, but 10.5 is a lot. I don't like that number at all. We're terrible against the spread. We're 1-3. Atlanta's the only team we covered against. So I don't like the spread for the total or for the full game. I like the first half spread, 5.5. I think we can go in up 6 or 7 at the half. So that's on the card, is under or minus 5.5 rather, Bucs first half. Because of the defense though, I'm gonna have to also add over 17.5 for the Dolphins for the game. They've been held to 17 or fewer points in half their games, I think. But I just think with our defense, I think they're going to break 17.5. And the lock of the week, I'm moving the over into lock of the week. It's been the bread and butter all season. It's hit every time but last week. Weather should be better. Afternoon thunderstorms, but they're projected to end up like fourth quarter, maybe even after the game. So the lock of the week will be the over. It's 47.5. I think over 47.5. Main card again, first half, Bucs minus 5.5, and Dolphins over 17.5 for the game.
Good bets. So I want to do something a little bit different to handle this. We're 4 games into the season now, so we're doing a little bit of a quarter season report card, guys. Bryce and I have our season predictions the same, which are 3-1. Our season predictions are true. We both have a loss to the Rams, and that's what's going to happen. John, you had us at 4-0, so 3 out of 4. Bryce is our winner in terms of fantasy points right now, and 34.3, with the high watermark of Mike Evans in week 3, 18.6. I am losing right now with a low mark of Braid at 1.8 points in week 2. So guys, just looking at, going over our season predictions, just real quick, I got a sense that we all had this idea in the first 4 games that our team had a sense of an identity while we were facing teams that didn't. They had teams that were turnover. So I just want to get your thoughts real quick. 4 games into the season, do you think we still have that identity you thought we would have in the beginning of the season, or do we need to answer some questions still about this team. Let's start with John.
We absolutely have some questions we need to answer. And the first question we need to answer right now is, where is OJ Howard? With Gronkowski being out, where is OJ Howard? And if he's not going to be playing, why is he not being traded for another piece where somewhere we are lacking? Why isn't he a pick? Why isn't he a cornerback? Why isn't he something else other than what he is, which is eating up a roster spot? And yeah, we have some growth we need to go through, and we've got a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover going, and we're not playing the way we should, but I think we will figure that out. But the main question I have for the Buccaneers is, what are we doing with the personnel that we do have? Why are Mike Evans' numbers so low? Why are Chris Godwin's numbers so low? Where is OJ Howard? Where are the tools that we have, and why aren't we exploiting them? And if we can figure that out, I think, going forward, we'll move back on track.
Yeah, I think from an offensive perspective, I thought we'd be a little bit more balanced 4 games into the season. Obviously, the running game is still a work in progress. It did pick up a little bit last game, but I think that might have been more to do with the atmosphere, the weather, than it did with the overall game plan. So I would think our identity as we go into, as we continue the season is it's going to be a pass-heavy attack, but that's to be expected with the Bruce Arians team. So from an offensive perspective, I think that's kind of what we anticipated anyway. Defensively, no, I think there's a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball. I expected the pass rush to be a lot better. I expected the front seven to play a lot better. And I expected the secondary, although I still think as we began the season that the secondary was probably the weakest unit. I did not think that they were going to revert back to, early 2020, 2019 Jameis era kind of secondary, if you will. Now, obviously, we've had a lot of injuries in the secondary. We've also had injuries to our front seven as well, with JPP being out for a couple games. With that being said, I think overall, if you were to ask the defense how they would assess their performance over the first 4 games, I think they would tell you they've been below expectations. So really, I think the defense needs to figure out what its identity is going forward. And to me, that identity is going to have to go through the front seven. To be fair, I think from like a run defense perspective, we're still top 5, and that has always been the case since Todd Bowles has taken over as defensive coordinator. It's what are we going to do to step up in the back end? Will these cornerbacks that need to step up in the roles play up to the level of competition they're asked to be playing? And can we create more turnovers? I think that's the biggest thing as well is, with a lack of, if we can continue to improve the pass rush, I think that will allow our secondary to play a little bit more loosely, a little bit more aggressively. And then the turnovers should help with, limiting the opposition's offense going forward. So overall, if I was going to give it a grade, I think we expected to be here, right? Probably not playing to the level that we expected, but 3-1 is what I thought they'd be. So I'm going to go ahead and give them a solid B+.
Yeah, I can agree with that grade. I know for myself, I do think I've seen the change that Tom Brady has brought with us, even from last year, where that winning culture is now. You see certain games like the Dallas game where before we would have lost the game on a game-winning field goal, where it would have been shanked, or we would have done something to have lost the game, even in the Patriots game as well. So I do see still that instance of we will win games when we really don't have a chance. We have no business winning, or that they're very close that in the past we would have lost. So I do appreciate that about this team, that there's still that winning side to them. That said, there's a lot of cleanup to do. And I think the biggest thing is just having that mental focus and that mental edge back as a team to make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. We see a lot of penalties, we see a lot of mistakes, and just plays where you can see that mental focus isn't there. And I think that's what we really need to sharpen up, is just that commitment, that team level commitment to a championship. So if there's anything I'd like to see more of, is that more focus on the field. Zach, I know you weren't here when we did our season predictions, but how are you going to rectify getting both of our players injured when you pick them for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, I could have a perfect report card right now. I could have been 100% of my predictions. We'll never know. Yeah, I mean, between the lock of the week just being terrible and yeah, I have like a Black Widow thing going on with picking fantasy players, which is bad because if we had done them, I would have picked the Bucs defense this week, and I don't think that's probably a good thing, But I don't know. I mean, I'm trying my best to pick fantasy players and keeping them upright, but I'm just not good at it. I mean, just quickly, like my own expectations for this team obviously were, that they'd be better, obviously. I mean, they don't look great at 3-1. It's been struggles, but I think the hardest part of the season's over for a while. I think there's a lot of nice matchups coming up. I think really until Buffalo in December, I think we have a nice tune-up stretch here, and the schedule's favorable overall, even with Buffalo. So we got the tough part over. We ripped the Band-Aid off. We looked bad in the last 2 games. We're injured. The defense hasn't come along. That's how they were last year. They were terrible, relatively terrible the first half, and then they got fired. So maybe people get healthy, things come together. I mean, I'm still optimistic. It's a Brady-led team, but I think they look better. They haven't looked great. I mean, I don't have to bring back spreads, but good teams win, great teams cover. This team has only covered 1 spread, so I don't know. There's something to it. I don't know.
Just good enough to win, it seems, this season. We'll see in the next 4 games how we do. Should be hopefully not the hardest of slates, with some of the weaker teams expected to come up in the season. So I think that's going to do it for us this episode. Buck Bros, as always, stay tuned. We'll go through every season. Let us know how you guys think we're doing this season, how your guys' season predictions are coming along as well. And as always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Yeah, exactly. To your point, Zach, I think we do need to incorporate did we all freeze? Okay.
Yes, we all froze.
Sorry.
I think it was just you, man.